We have a lot of moving parts happening in the weather department over the next 7 to 10 days with really all four seasons on the table. So I appreciate all my subscribers out there. I would love to reach 250,000 subscribers by March, and you can help me get there. If you are new to the channel, I put out a lot of content, about 27 videos a month to keep you well ahead of the storm. So hit the subscribe button and follow along throughout 2024. So here's the warm sector. We are in almost summer today because we're going to be seeing some record high temperatures across the central and eastern 2/3 of the U.S. with that warm surge, kind of that southwest wind. It's going to be feeling really nice. It's actually going to be feeling a lot more like April than it will be February, with those 70s coming in from Texas all the way into portions of Oklahoma. But look at the surge of the 60s in the northern Illinois, even 61 there in Pittsburgh. Plenty of warm conditions reach all the way to Wisconsin in the middle 50s there. So that is definitely warm for this time of the year. But we do have some colder air that will be building out west that will be slowly shifting eastbound, making that transition for the weekend. But for today, we do have concerns for severe weather. I showed you that kind of the southwest wind, and right around 5, 6, 7 o'clock tonight, we do have a tornado risk. It is a 2%, but yes, those areas within the Chicago region, down up there towards Milwaukee, you are in the corridor around that time frame that you could see a little spin up tornado. So if we look at the overall radar depiction, this is around 7 o'clock, and you can see why the Storm Prediction Center has in fact upgraded and put that risk out for tornadoes. It's because of these little isolated supercell renegade thunderstorms that could kind of get out of hand for that small time frame. So all we're really looking at, if you're living up there towards the Milwaukee region down to Chicago there, yeah, 5, 6, 7 o'clock, just kind of be on high alert as these systems kind of move through, because it does have the instability where it could actually spin up a tornado, and some of those actually could have some larger hail associated with it as well. But for the rest of the country, we are tracking that colder air coming in from the west. Obviously, the West Coast has had a lot of heavy rainfall as of late. Now that's moving further into those areas into the southwest. I mean, Flagstaff got cranked with heavy snows. You're getting more snow today, and you're talking feet of snow out there while you're trying to dig out there in Denver. You got more snow on the way coming up for this weekend in those mountain regions as well. But out ahead of it, we are going to be still in the warm sector with plenty warmer air while we're waiting for that colder air to come in. And we are going to be seeing some snow across the Dakotas, through portions of southern Canada there, heading on later on this afternoon. But it's all about this setup right here. This is the main player that we'll be watching and keeping an eye on as we head into the weekend. It's got a pretty dynamic trough that's going to be digging in, and out ahead of it, you do have that warm sector, right? I showed you the temperatures, plenty warm. So you're going to have a lot of instability and a lot of vertical lift associated with it. That basically means there's going to be a lot of heavier precipitation, because if you look at the water vapor imagery, look at that steady stream of moisture coming in off that southwest wind, folks. And yeah, that's an abundance amount of moisture. So it has the same DNA that left all the ingredients for heavy rainfall over California. That's the same system, folks. So it's got a lot of juice up in the atmosphere, and it's going to dump a lot of heavy rainfall. Then you have the vertical lift that's going to have that vorticity out west that's going to allow these systems to kind of have that upward rising motion air. That's why we have the high water content value on the table, especially for those areas in southeast Texas and heading into the southeast going into the weekend. So as this system comes gets a little bit closer, it's going to be dragging in that colder air from the west. The further it digs, that's where the snows could start to overturn the atmosphere, with a dynamic cooling aspect to it as well. So as the rain starts to fall, it's going to be dragging down some of that colder air, and those transition times are 5, 7 degrees sometimes with that dynamic cooling. Then you add the vertical max. a lot of dynamics going on with it as well, because you got the vertical lift. That basically means if it does start snowing, it's going to be big, heavy snowflakes. I mean, huge, big snowflakes coming out, because it's one of those like 35-degree snows. You get those type snows, and those can be surprises. You can be surprised from that. You're like, wait a minute, I thought it was 38, and all of a sudden it's 32. Now it's snowing, and it's just coming down, heavy snow, but it's a wet snow, right? I mean, you're going to be plenty warm out ahead of this. The ground's going to be plenty warm out ahead of the warm sector, going into that Saturday, Sunday time frame. But yeah, there's the temperatures coming in out west. You do have the cooler anomalies. You can actually see, depicted on the anomalies here, where the actual low pressure is. Yeah, right out of Flagstaff, coming through New Mexico here, heading right into West Texas, into the Texas Panhandle. And that's where the atmosphere is going to be starting to overturn with snow. And then further down to the southeast, we got the warm sector, and that's where the atmosphere is going to have some severe weather. So this is Sunday. The Storm Prediction Center has already highlighted this day 4 outlook for a slight risk from Galveston to Sugar Land to Woodlands, all the way up to College Station, through the Beaumont Port Arthur region into Lake Charles, out to New Orleans, and all the way up to Natchez and back into the Lufkin region. So this is the kind of favorite area where you are into that instability, that you could see some strong to severe thunderstorms. And looking at the dynamics and considering we're 4 days out, I mean, this is likely going to be increased to an enhanced risk, as we get closer to this event. So definitely be on high alert heading into that Sunday timeframe. That is Super Bowl Sunday, for some severe storms, but it's not going to be severe where the cold sector is. So in the surface map, you got the instability further south. You can see the darker greens here. That's the depicted on that heavier water vapor content, the higher rain probabilities. And then it's just kind of a chillier rain as the temperatures start to fall into North Texas, down into Central Texas. But then it's all snow as it starts into areas into West Texas, into eastern portions of New Mexico, but getting into the Panhandle. And as the game starts to come on, you can be looking outside your window. If you live in the Texas Panhandle into western Oklahoma, it's going to be snowing, right? And then all that should transfer over to some snow, heading into portions of maybe Oklahoma City, starting out rain, and then transferring over to that kind of heavy wet snow that could coming out of the sky there as that dynamic cooling starts to take place, heading into that Sunday night time frame into the overnight in and around the Oklahoma region. And then there in the southeast, yeah, some of the heavier rainfall could impact the Atlanta region. Some of these areas could pick up 2 to 4 inches from this deal as this moves across. But notice the red line. That's your freezing line, and that's going to be the sharp demarcation line, who actually possibly gets the snow and who actually is going to be getting the rain with this low pressure as it moves up, because we are going to have a formidable low, forming over there around Tennessee area. So from the southeast, it's all about the rain and the warm sector, the heavier thunderstorms, and then to the northwest side of that low pressure center, that's where the snow is going to be flying, now getting into the portions of the Missouri region, and then starting to impact those areas into southern Illinois, back into Indiana as well. But looking at the temperatures, we are going to be, seeing winter start to come back after that warmer temperatures we've been dealing with for an extended period of time. It's going to feel a lot more like winter as the cold front comes. Finally, that cold air comes in on the backside. So these are your overall wind chills going into Monday morning time frame. You can almost see where the snowpack is, right? So that you have the colder wind chill anomalies here, and that drags down that colder air. It's going to feel, a lot more like winter because, coming up on that Monday morning time frame. And then of course you got the, higher temperatures further southeast within that warm sector. But it's all about the system. As this continues to move out to the east, we'll be watching 2 areas. So you got this northern side, and you can see this little vorticity coming in from southern Canada here, but then you also have the southern side. Notice how this is the European, this is a little bit more elongated, so that means a little bit more progressive system. And if that transpires, that'll move out faster, not allowing this cold air to come in. So that more or less pushes the warmer, the warmer air a little bit further north. So that'll push the snow line further north as well. If the European actually comes, to fruition. But at the same time frame, this is the GFS as of right now at the same exact time frame. Look how more compact it is, right? It's a little bit more tighter, and it's also slower. Look how far back it is. So it's not nearly as progressive. It's a little bit slower. So if that situation unfolds, then you would have an increased amounts of snow opportunities, because you'd have the colder air come in on the front side, and then you have the vertical lift coming on the back side. Plus, that would put it a little bit further south than what the European is kind of implying at the moment, before the numerical models, the shorter range guidance actually kicks in. So if that scenario plays out, you put the snow line around southern portions of Indiana, into Ohio, there back into Pennsylvania. Remember, right now, Pittsburgh, right? I mean, you're 61 degrees today, right? So you got a sharp transition from all 4 seasons there, heading back into winter by Tuesday morning, with possible snow falling up in that region. And as this continues to move out, and of course this is the GFS solution at the moment, would put the snow a little bit further south. So those areas along the I-95 corridor would come into play with this system. The European eliminates that aspect because it doesn't have the colder air, and it has an all rain solution along the coast, and then has a further northern side to that heavier snows. So we'll be obviously fine tuning this, because this is only Thursday and this is a Tuesday time frame. So definitely more certainty as you pull back in towards the Texas Panhandle. And it's the only uncertainty at the moment right now is how these systems kind of phase and kind of merge together as this continues to move off into the mid-Atlantic, into the Northeast. But overall, here's the blend. So I show you this because this is kind of a storm track, right? So don't look at the accumulations, because some of these areas could be some surprises, but I'm more or less showing you this of likelihood where the actual snow will be falling and where the rain will be falling. So this is going to be predominantly your snow track going forward from that Sunday through Tuesday morning time frame. And of course, all this further south will just be all rain, right? You got the severe weather into Sunday for the southeast, and then everything moving into the southeast. This corridor would probably be extended into the Dixie Alley region heading into that Monday time frame, but it's just kind of too far off to be highlighted with certainty at the moment. But what's interesting as we head into the middle of the month, so we got some colder air coming in, and obviously we've got a very active subtropical jet stream. And look at these 2 storm systems. We got another dynamic system coming in off the west coast. Unfortunately, look at that, another event coming in for California with more heavy rain. But look at the system out ahead of it, and look how far south this vorticity drops this time. That's like further into Mexico, folks, as the colder air drains in from the north. So it definitely starts to get interesting, right? I would say it definitely starts to get interesting after the middle of the month there, as the colder air, and this, because of this system's just so far south, that it definitely increases the probability or possibilities for, wintry precipitation. Because looking at the latest Climate Prediction Center highlighting those colder anomalies for a good part of the lower 48, but especially those areas further south into the southern plains, into the southeast, and up the eastern seaboard. At the same time, we got that abundance amount of moisture, and you got those vorticities coming in as well. So you got vertical lift, and you've got upper winds. The Arctic oscillation goes pretty far negative during that time frame as well. So looking at the map here, after the 15th of the month, we've got all models on board saying, hey, we got some colder air coming in from Canada, and that's going to be pushing southbound, after towards the middle of the month, or at least colder than what this first push is going to be this weekend. And all models are on board with that going into that mid-month time frame, really extending almost to the rest of February there. And then at the same time, right, you got those systems coming in from the Gulf of Alaska there, coming in off the west coast. You got more heavy rains, and that you have a little bit of drying spell coming up for the west coast. But unfortunately, as you hit that 17th time frame through that 21st time frame with that system I showed you, Yeah, probably the last thing you want to see, folks. A slight to moderate risk for more excessive rainfall across this corridor. But if you could live in those areas further south, look at this, an abundance amount of moisture coming in from that vertical lift and puts a slight risk for heavy precipitation right around that same time frame, middle of the month towards the 17th time frame. And we've got colder anomalies, so you got some pieces of the puzzle starting to come together for most areas of the US turning much colder in the second half of February. And then it gets, of course, it gets a little bit more interesting for those areas. And I talk about this step down process where right now this first system was through the Dakotas. This second system, right, is going through the Texas Panhandle and up into portions of the Ohio Valley, getting into the Northeast there. But you could have that third system that could potentially even drop further south than that. And definitely some colder anomalies extending all the way down into the Gulf Coast with increased precipitation. So yes, it does increase the probabilities of, if you were to see some wintry precipitation, this would be a favorable time frame to kind of looking at this. So this would be something we're kind of be going to fine tune as we head into the middle of the month. So guys, I appreciate you guys watching. Do like this video, definitely hit the subscribe button, and catch me next update where I protect you before and after the storm.